Hello,
Hello,
good to see you back.
how are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Hello.
Hi, Jalander.
You had some good days off, Andrea?
Yeah, it was very nice. We went to Crete.
Ah, wow.
Yes.
Is it hot there already, or?
Um, it was nice. I guess the last couple of days was getting um towards 30 Celsius.
Mhm.
Um,
Wow, good.
but yeah, most of the time was really nice temperature. The sea was warm. Um, so it
That's
was
good
nice.
already. Early in the season.
Yeah. Yeah, later on it gets too hot and humid,
Mm.
they told me. Like in August, July is not, maybe a bit too much.
Agree.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Ben.
Other.
Okay, guess it's too past. Let me start to bring up the notes. Um, right. So I missed the last couple of working groups, possibly because I was away. So I put some items on the agenda for the taken from the last meeting. But yeah, and thanks, Jalander, for adding more. So if there are more things to discuss, please, and then. Okay. Shall we get started?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. I should sign in. So welcome everyone to the CDEvents working group. Today is June the 10th. So let's see what the agenda we have for today. SDK update for 041. So this topic was discussed last meeting. I don't know if there is anything specific to bring up in terms of SDKs here. Maybe I can say on the Go side, I've been working on building the new version of the SDK. Yeah, so trying to integrate links and support for the various things.
So last time we talked quite a lot about the schema URI or the custom schema support, we should say maybe in SDKs, whether the SDK should have some support of custom schemas or not, and or whether the SDKs should be possible to like subclass as you would do in Java, um, to so you can generate your own SDK based on our SDK. So that was discussed quite a lot, and we didn't have any final conclusions, I guess on that. But at least we should add the custom URI property onto the all our SDKs now, so we can at least add that property for now. I don't know what about the Go SDK, if there is an easy way to subclass things there, and if that would be a feasible way forward.
Right. So my plan for that, I mean, we was of course to discuss what we should do. But the initial thought I had was that the SDK could, if requested, validate this against the schema provided. Maybe, yeah, provide some way to load the schema as well if we didn't want to load via HTTP. But yeah, those are details. But I guess yeah. So the idea was to the idea I had was to simply if the schema URI is provided, try to locate the schema, and then if the schema is available, validate against it. But the other thing that I wasn't sure whether we should do or we shouldn't do, it's that in the spec we say that custom schema should be kind of represent a subset of the original schema, if it makes sense. So kind of a subset of the possible JSON documents which are compliant, if it makes sense. And I don't know if we should try and validate that, make sure that, or at least issue a warning if someone is trying to use a schema which would allow things that are not allowed by the original JSON schema.
Yeah, I think just as we validate things towards our schemas for, so to say, ordinary events, we should, of course, I guess, validate even custom events towards the, what should I say, ordinary schemas. But then we need to know what event type it really is, right? If it is a custom event type, it might make things harder. But if it's just a custom schema on top of an existing event type, if you get the difference, then it should be easy enough, I guess, to validate towards our published schemas.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we should perform the validation against the standard schema in any case. And then validate against the custom schema on top. So perform the two validation. I guess if the schema is available. In case of custom events, I think we do provide like a root schema, so we could still validate against the root schema and then the custom schema on top. Yeah, but I'm not sure about the subclassing that you were mentioning. So was that the idea of being able to have like kind of custom SDK that would expand the original SDK?
Yeah, I think that's the thing we discussed a bit. If we would want such support to, for example, in your IDE, you could have expansion help for IDE, or sorry, for schema specific, custom specific things, which might not then be part of the CDEvents SDK that we provide, but could be part of a custom SDK that is built on top of the CDEvents SDK. But I'm not sure if that's, I mean, I guess it's not needed urgently anyway. It'd be good to have. If it's, I mean, it might not even be possible for all languages. So.
And that was my viewpoint, is if I don't, we'd have to see if there's an urgent need for this. And I think we may be doing a lot of work for something that we shouldn't be, chasing. And also, I brought up that if somebody is doing like custom schemas and custom SDKs, we should find out why they're doing that, and more than likely it's just something missing in our existing schema that we should look at how to roll in. That was my viewpoint on this.
Yeah, and I gave a counter viewpoint that, it is going to be needed regardless. Like this is going to be needed. And the understanding of why is I think is a good idea. But like I said, there are going to be people that are going to want this no matter what, um, especially like if it's tool specific. So I think it's really important to understand that. I want to make this really clear that it's tool specific, right? So if they don't care about interoperability, they just care about the tool being able to interface with this event bus, specifically using CDEvents, then they want to be able to use the SDK, whether it's something that's built on top of it or within the SDKs. But the SDK should be flexible enough that if we're going to provide a custom event, then we should also provide hooks to allow for it to satisfy whatever need that the end user has. But I do agree that we should be looking at how many people are interested in this feature, because like everyone's like suggesting here, if only like 1 or 2 people care about this, then we don't have to solve this directly. But I think it's really important though, just to like say just to kind of disregard that we should be even doing this. I think is kind of a bad call out. I think we have to understand that people are going to have their use cases, and we have to understand that it might not fit our idealization on how seed events should work, but we should at least be able to leverage the custom functionality that they may want, especially if they're not interested in interoperability, right? So I think that's really important to, I really want to emphasize that because I think it's really important, especially around this custom events. And like as a follow-up, if if we're going to hold the mindset too, if we should look into why, and then make it very difficult for them to even use in the SDKs. Why the hell did we introduce it in the first place? It kind of makes no sense, right? So I think we have to understand we've introduced it, so now we kind of have to live with that decision and at least make it easy for the users.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, we should consider these, but I also agree we should go incrementally, and so start providing basic support, and then we can look into when people start using this, what kind of pain point they have, how many are interested in having additional features, and then we can introduce support for those. And I think as often in open source, I mean, if there is a strong need for certain features, and users may also help with designing those or implementing those.
Yeah, definitely. And if we're smart about it too, like kind of think about it from one standpoint. If we're smart about it, depending on how we allow hooking into the SDK, making it go from a custom event to eventually a CD event. Let's say that they're interested in interoperability, but the proposal process is a lot longer for them. So they need something now. So they utilize custom event as kind of like a stopgap until the proposal gets accepted and gets released in the SDKs, right? With the design of how the hooks work, we may be able to make that pretty seamless where all they need to do is maybe like remove a hook or something simple with like configuration, right? So we may be able to do that where it's just completely seamless.
Yeah, if we could figure out how to, keep from breaking backward compatibility with those, that would be really slick. It also kind of leads that point kind of leads to the pathway for people introducing brand new events altogether that we haven't thought about.
What do you mean, Steve? I mean,
Well, for example, in the right now in the SDK, we don't have anything on like fuzzing testing, doing fuzz testing. So there may be a new event that somebody from like Zap Proxy or somebody that's doing fuzz testing comes up with an event that we don't have currently in any that doesn't fit any of our schema buckets, that they could actually create the schema and the event and then submit the proposal for it to be accepted. That's what I mean. There's going to be things that come out of the woodwork once this thing gets going that we haven't even thought about.
yes, yes,
Does
of
that make
course.
sense?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have been adding events to this pack, but it would make sense to have like the process as smooth as possible.
Yeah. So with the custom event, you could, and that process for the custom event could be the same process that we use for introducing a brand new event to the schema. That's all I'm saying. It would fall in line pretty well, the same pathway.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to imagine how that could look like, but yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be whatever the process is. Somebody submits a PR with some documentation, some use cases, whatever you go through to decide that this new event or this new custom event that we're going to convert from a custom event to a regular event, that whole process would probably be the very similar, is all I'm saying. Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Yeah, I also think if moving from a custom event to a standardized event, when we, for example, put in a new property into this spec, I think it's quite probable that something is changed on that property, either the name or the format or the syntax of it, or even the event where this puts really. So saying that we should make sure that there is try to see that there is no change for the user when moving from a custom event to a standardized event, if we call it that. I think that's quite far from the reality, how it will look, that I imagine anyway.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be hard. I'm just thinking though, there may be ways, like I haven't thought fully through it. Like I said, it really depends on how the hook system works, but we may be able to allow for easy transitions between the custom event to the CD event, at least to some partial level. And if something, like, obviously it depends on how well the event was thought about in the initial phase, because if something was designed very poorly and then they come to us with a PR and it completely changes, there's nothing we can do about that. That no matter what SDK and how powerful it is, we're not going to be able to help with that. However, I think there are some ways, like for instance, like if we have custom hooks and custom like serializations and marshalers and adapters, we may be able to utilize things like annotations, go tags, so on and so forth, to kind of convert between one or the other before sending it off, like within the hook. So like I said, there's multiple ways of like solving this problem. I don't know what the right way is yet, but I think we can make it pretty seamless. At least seamless as in the user may need to only tweak a few things, and it should just at least work. They don't have to change the complete code base, is what I'm kind of getting at. And then hopefully, as they iterate on it, eventually maybe those hooks just kind of disappear as they kind of like fully convert, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice for sure. I'm thinking maybe we should track this somewhere on GitHub, this discussion. At least capture what we discussed, and so when we get to it, we don't forget about it. And I mean, when we have the SDKs ready, at least with basic support for schema URIs, we can see what we want to do next about this.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, and to Steve's point though, you know, we definitely want to see how much interest are in these custom events though, because you know, like I said, if Steve, you know, has this tool, but he's the only one that's interested in it, you know, that obviously, you know, designing the whole SDK around these hooks and whatnot may not be, it's maybe too much effort right now, right? So I think it might be a good idea maybe just to document it like you were saying, Andrea, but we want to be careful like not spending too many cycles on this point until we get some, you know, more clear wants from the communities. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I guess with a follow-up to that, what I can do is, because like I said, I have a few ideas on how to make this seamless. I can create a GitHub issue kind of like in one of the SDKs, or maybe like a in the community or something, or the community repo, and outline what I was thinking. Maybe the kind of I can think of 3 solutions right now and kind of outline each one. And then when time comes to potentially revisit that, we can always reference that. Would that work for you, Andrea?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe the community repo would be a good one.
All right, cool. I'll go ahead and put it in there.
Cool. I guess last time there was a PR, the Java SDK. Oh, this is the generate SDK. Okay. So is that a request for review, Jalander, on this one, or?
Yeah, I think a review has been done from Andrews. I think he has approved, and a couple of more comments from Ben are addressed actually. So I'm waiting on re-review and approval for this. So this still doesn't include the schema URI, but schema URI support and links. So that still will be pending with 0.4.1 Java SDK. So other parts, I mean, like new spec and new API APIs or new events are added as per the 0.4.1. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. All right. And anything else on SDKs?
So and one thing, like we have to still decide like how we wanted to use the schema, like custom schemas and also links, right? So that there will be any discussion like how actually SDKs will use that. So I've created a couple of issues actually to understand how links will be used and how this custom schema URI will be used within the existing events.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For schema URI, I think we were just discussing what we should do. I guess step 1 is to support the property, and step 2, provide support for validation, maybe loading or registering the schema. And then step 3 would be what we were discussing of providing some form of hooks to, provide more advanced functionality there. I guess we could have an issue as well for maybe step 1 and 2 for the initial part, so that we define what the expected behavior is, and we make it kind of aligned across SDKs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for links, that's gonna be pretty complex. I still haven't created the GitHub issues for that. I really need to do that. every time I get to it, something else hops on my plate, whether it's related to CDEvents or something to something adjacent to it. But I need to create, so I'll go ahead and create 2 PRs to community, one for the schema with hooks, that kind of explaining that, and then I'll also create a maybe GitHub issue, maybe it's issues more appropriate for the links one. I'll create a links issue talking about the several steps that are needed to get it into a good place to be used. We don't have to do every step, but definitely the more steps that we complete will definitely make it easier. The main one being propagation. I think that's going to be the most crucial. So I will probably start there, even though that's probably not the starting point, but I definitely want to start there because it is one of the more complicated pieces. So I will create a GitHub issue specifically for links propagation. And then once that gets kind of fleshed out and figured out, we can then move into how people are going to use links and utilize links propagation to do that. So those will be the I guess the 3 action items for me then. All right, yeah, will that work for you, Jolander?
Yeah, that works. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I guess maybe this links nicely in one of the other items, the new CDEvents working group proposal. Since, as I think there is a lot of discussions about how we implement the SDKs and what kind of features we want to have, and there are other bits of software that we are developing as well as CDEvents community. So there was this idea to have a new CDEvents working group dedicated specifically to the software part, and to keep this working group dedicated to more the specification discussion. I don't know if this was discussed in previous meetings, the last couple of meetings.
Emil brought it up last week, and I told him, based off of our conversation last time, Andre, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought I was going to get an email from like a crew of people, like you were talking about meeting with a few folks. I forgot who you mentioned, but one being from Deploy Hub versus and then a few others to kind of discuss implementation like service wise, and then throw in kind of like the working group in there. But I never saw that email, so I was just kind of like wondering. I wasn't gonna do any sort of actions on this specific task until that was kind of like figured out, or if I missed something.
Right, I guess what happened is I went on holidays and didn't really follow up on that. Yeah.
There was some notes about sending a mail to the governing board. Is that it then? Because I wasn't part of that work group before you went on leave, I guess, Andrea, where it was stated about the governing board. I'm not sure if that's the thing you're talking about, Ben, the mail to be sent there, or if it's some other mail which was not documented in the notes.
Well,
I think that.
There's
Sorry.
2 things. One is to go to the governing board and make sure that the governing board is all okay creating the other working group,
Right.
and making sure that the governing board's on board with going out and actually building out the message broker piece. So, because there's going to be work on each one of the tool sides. So, like Jenkins going to need some work. Docker's going to need some work. Those type of things. So that's one side of it, and then the other side is the actual time of when that working group would get together and who would be, how are we going to reach out and get people involved on that from the actual implementation side. from like the tools, we have to hunt somebody down from Jenkins. We're going to have to hunt somebody down from, GitHub Actions or Scorecard or something like that, that type of thing.
Right. So with governing board, I assume we're talking about the CDF governing board.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I mean, there is an email sent to the governing board, and I mean, just wanted to discuss, I guess, the idea of the hero project that you, Stephen, and Tracy brought up, and with the details that you were discussing. In terms of a CDEvents working group, I don't think we need any approval from the CDF
Okay.
governing board. I mean, what we do in terms of CDEvent as a project is up to the CDEvent community. I guess the board involvement is that if you want to find some kind of funding within the CDF or from outside, and we want support from the governing board for that. That's, I guess, where the governing board from the CDF would get involved. But yeah, in terms of creating a working group for the CDEvents project, that's up to us. I mean, if we have activities, enough people interested in this working group, then we just go ahead and create it, I would say. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think if that's the case, because I was under the same impression as Steve. I thought the governing board actually had to do approvals for this working group, but if that's not the case, then that makes it makes it a lot easier. So I guess the question then becomes like, what time were we guys thinking, and what day, for instance, and how often are like kind of like the bigger ones for me, because I already know that there's like me and Jolander, we're probably going to be in there quite a bit because like we're talking about the SDKs, we're working on the Garrett translator and so on and so forth, right? So I think at least me and him will definitely be in there. I think making at least me or Jolander one of the working group lead or SIG lead, I think would be perfect for that. Or unless you guys want to do it, I know you guys have a lot on your plate. That's why I think me or Jolander would probably be better. Probably, I don't know. I'm volunteering Jolander. Is that okay with you, Jolander? Sorry.
Sorry, like what is exactly? I don't know, like what definition of this.
Oh, so I meant like who would be running the working group is kind of like what I was kind of getting at. I just kind of like assumed since you work on the SDKs and whatnot. I just wanted to make sure that that was okay. If you had interest in leading it, you could be a potential candidate.
Yeah, I need to think about that actually. So maybe I'll update. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it works for me. And then so I know so the biggest thing here is that like time, right? Because so I think 10 a.m. works typically best for me. I don't know if I can do any earlier because I will probably be dead from lack of sleep. But yeah, if we're okay with like 10 a.m.s, then I'm okay with that time as well. And then whether or not we want to do it weekly, bi-weekly, is completely like up to I guess the amount of work that needs to be done. But it seems like already with this release, it seems like there's quite a bit of work. So I'm okay with having it once a week, but once every couple of weeks might be fine too. But let me know what your thoughts are on that, and we can kind of go from there.
Well,
Uh,
so currently this meeting happens, the one we're on right now is every other week, right? It's not
No, this
weekly.
means no, it's weekly.
Okay. Because I was thinking we could grab if it was every other week, we could do on the off
Gotcha.
weeks, the other one. So we'll just have to find a time slot then.
I guess one way could be maybe to use the CDEvents time slot that is the same as this one, but tomorrow every second week.
I like that.
rotating with the talk meeting. So, and the SIG meeting has often been cancelled anyway, so we could maybe even decide to not have the SIG meetings until needed, and then if needed, we can maybe find a dedicated slot for that meeting at that time. That's one proposal at least. What do you say,
Yeah,
Andrea?
no,
Would
that's
you be
I
okay,
like,
Andrea, to
yeah.
think to skip the SIG events meeting for some time at least?
I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the first, I mean, the first task for the working group probably to define a kind of mission for the working group, so that we define what we want to achieve and what kind of task we want to work on, and
I have a lot of that already coming from the Ortelius side.
Is that you volunteering to write the proposal for the SIG event or the SIG working group, Steve?
Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, that'd be great.
I won't have it done for tomorrow, but because when Emil, when was the next SIG event time slot?
It is tomorrow, I believe, since the talk was last week, so it's tomorrow.
Okay.
No, sorry. No, wait. It's only once per month currently in the calendar, so it's not tomorrow either. But maybe that could be changed then. The recurrence of that meeting is currently set to once per month, which is done in 2 weeks from now. But of course, that
So
could be changed, so it's every second week instead.
it would be great for us to do 2 weeks from now. Take that one. It just gives me time. Just gives us time to get all the ducks in a row, and then change, like you said, from a monthly to a bi-weekly.
Yeah. So June 25th then.
Yeah.
okay, sounds good. I guess I can do the updating the calendar entry, or do we want to schedule another meeting in parallel on the same slot with a different name, a different Zoom URL, or just use what is there for now?
I would just use what's there.
Okay. So
I don't know, maybe I somewhat get your point, Andrea. If it is so that people in this new working group might not be the same as in the current SIG group, if there's any reason for people to meet at the same time in different groups. Is that what you mean?
Oh, I see where you're going. Yeah,
But
whatever's the
yeah.
easiest. I'm all
But
for easy.
I think let us take the current one and just rename it to CDEvents working group for, I don't know, software specific discussions. And then if needed, we set up a parallel SIG events meeting if needed on the same slot, if we see that the same people need not be on both meetings.
okay, sounds good. Great. Cool. I guess the other thing is we might want to reach out to other people who could contribute to this, who is not in this meeting now. But I mean, let's get started with this group, and then we can reach out to other parties who might be interested in contributing.
I just looked in the Slack channel for CDEvents and it has 249 members. So I guess if we reach out there, we would reach most of those people that might be interested anyway, if we at least
Okay.
mention them to the channel there. Maybe people will be annoyed, but yeah, that's at least one way to reach many people that are interested in CDEvents.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
where us starting in 2 weeks gives us some time to round some folks up.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I guess next, I also copied this from last meeting and previous meetings, the enum or string discussion. I'm not sure that was there any progress. There was some discussion last week. So David mentioned there is an issue right now with the Rust SDK and the schema as it is today. I think last time we discussed possibly change it and use other things, other features of JSON schema to express this and just keep string in the JSON schema. But I'm not sure if you have a definite decision on this.
Yeah, so I think my thing is that string enums is a popular concept. So I don't know what the ask or like even in Rust, it's a popular concept. So I'm confused on what this user is really complaining about. And it's still not clear to me. It sounds like he's just confused on the definition, which is real like I don't get it, because like if you read the title, it's just about confusion on the definition, then mentions like, you know, his the website he provided has trouble generating that particular JSON schema. But there has to be a way, because like I said, like I see this in Rust SDKs, I see this in Go SDKs, I see this in, like, you know, like I said, string enums is a popular concept. So I'm okay though with using examples, but I really want to understand what this user's trying to accomplish. Like if it's just to not, or to be able to have like a working tool, my first question always is, do they understand how to use JSON schema, or are they misusing the library to generate, or so on and so forth? Because like a lot of the times people don't know what the hell they're doing. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're asking the right questions before we're making a judgment too quick. And then, you know, he mentioned a tool, but he didn't get into any specifics, which that was kind of like my point to the asking that question. I wanted to know the exact issue that he was having, and so on, right? So yeah, but like I said, I think once he answers that, we can kind of figure out what needs to be done, and how we can update the schemas to reflect that properly.
Yeah, I think that the issue is that if you use at least any of what I've seen, JSON schemas to generate code from JSON schema, they don't really understand this. Any construct, any between enum or string as types. So they would generate a structure that is not really useful for like a SDK end user then to use, or not very nice. So the result is that you need to basically write custom code in the SDKs that is not automatically generated to manage this.
Gotcha. Well, if that is the case, if that is what he's saying here, then I would look at, well, we need to look at just the JSON schema, because I know that how we utilize JSON schema, we have our own generators, right? So it's like I'm confused on what you meant by like the generators having issues, because we're writing custom generators to begin with, right?
Yeah, well, I'm doing it for the Go SDK, but I believe that's not the case for the Rust.
Yeah. So what I was
SDK,
getting at with the
for
Rust
Java
one,
SDK.
right, is it an issue though? What I was saying is that we need to go look and see if, you know, like this user, you know, like, yeah, he probably knows the Rust generator, right? But does he know everything specific to this issue, you know, like how to utilize that library? What I'm saying is we don't want to make a decision thinking that, you know, that a user has all the information, which might not be true. So what I was getting at is that we need to investigate the Rust SDK or Java SDK and see if there's any sort of options or configuration that can be done in the generation logic, or the generation portion to help to accomplish whatever it is that we are wanting to accomplish, right? We shouldn't just take something for granted, is what I'm getting at.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I think this is happening for links also. I think when you use any in the schema definition for enum or string or any of like embedded or any linked path or any embedded link path or embedded link relation. So any kind of thing, right? So when generating is actually generating as an object, like I said previously, I think fixing this would help in Java SDK also, because it strictly generate one type of thing, like either it can be a string or enum. So I think, yeah, that help in fixing the Java SDK this issue. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
the,
string enums is
yeah.
huge in Java. So like I would be curious if they did not support this out of the box. I would even argue that this is a bug in the Java generator itself, because and mostly because if you can represent it in JSON schema and the SDKs can't do it properly, that's clearly a bug, right? However, we should be blocking our customers based off this bug. We need to figure out ways around it. But yeah, so I think one of us needs to spend some time looking into the Java SDK. I know Jalander, you probably already spent a little bit of time, but kind of, expressing all avenues to see if this is possible, and kind of like touching base back on this particular issue, if that works for you, Jolander. I know you already have a lot on your plate, especially with the stuff that we've been working on, but if you could also look into that, that could really help us. I can also look into it myself, but like I said, like this would be a fresh set of new eyes on it, so I might not have the same context and information as you, Jolander, but maybe that's also a good approach as well, having one that has a new set of eyes as well as a person that's seen it before. So maybe I'll do that as well. Let's take a look.
But do we really have the same construct in the link in the schemas for the links parts? I don't really see where. I mean, for sure we have
We
enums there,
use
but
we
we
use
don't see
any.
any of.
We
Sorry.
use any of when we have an array of links, and every link can be either a link end or a link start or a link relation.
Yeah, so that sounds like a bug.
Okay.
That clearly sounds like an unsupported feature. So it sounds like it supports only 99% of what JSON schema can do, right? If it doesn't support any of, like, that's a clear issue, right? Now, is it
I
any
think,
of only for objects, or is it any of for anything?
well, it's for anything. So in
Yeah,
theory, you can
it's
use
for,
it for type. Oh, sorry, Jalander, go ahead.
yeah, so it's for any of, like in this case enum or strings also generate like an object, and even like for the links also it generates kind of an object itself. So not with actual type reference or actual type of object. It uses, instead of its use, a generic object to generate that.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah,
Right.
let me take a look as well, and then let's great. Let's actually post back on that GitHub issue of like our findings, and kind of make a decision next week on what the next steps are. I think that's probably the best path forward.
Yeah. And I mean, I've looked at quite a few JSON schema libraries in across different languages, and most of them, they have kind of a list of things they support and they don't support in JSON schema, and like a list of working items that needs to be implemented to get full support. But I've not seen any of these libraries claiming that they support 100% of all the revisions of JSON schemas.
So that's important to note. Then, should we then be limiting ourselves to what is supported? Because I feel like that's not a good approach, right? So
But I still, sorry, I still failed to see the example in the links section. Could you show where that is? Because I see that we use any of, and that's not the main, I mean, that's not the problem, I think. The problem is that we, in this example, have any of between a string and a enum string. The specific case where, I mean, we don't validate the enum anyway, because any string will be valid. So why have it there? I think that's what the issue is about begin with.
Why have it is to provide some defaults. I think was the intention there, is to have some default enums that would exist. So basically you would have this string. So you have to think about it like this, right? Like you would have a string, but the string would be a typed enum. So you could have a string, but you would have to cast it to this typed enum or construct a new object for this typed enum, or use the set of defaults. That's kind of the idea. It's no different than string enums, like however in any other language, if you're familiar with that concept.
But any string is valid still, right?
Yeah. But typos happen, right? That's why you want to be able to provide defaults.
Yeah, but isn't that what the examples construct in the schema is for them? To
No,
provide a
it's not.
default.
It's
Okay.
for examples, right? Like examples, what we're doing there is overloading the term examples to help our generation. Examples is examples. It's not like if we put examples like foo in there, along with like our default, foo is going to be generated when it's actually an legit example, right? So I don't,
Okay.
I really want to kind of like not use examples, but if we have to do that, I'm not 100% against it either. Like I said, that's after we exhaust other options.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
the way to provide defaults. It's to do how we did it in the current code, current schemas
Yes.
we have. Okay.
Yes.
The thing is, the current setup we have, it won't really help with like protecting from typos or so, because if you make a typo, it will still go into the fallback string category, right? So at the end, in terms of validation, we don't provide any value more than just saying the type is string. So what we provide with the enum is a list of default values, which is different semantically from examples, of course, but in terms of JSON SDK, JSON schema SDKs or validation, we cannot really do any validation against those default values. Yeah, so I guess the question was, is it really worth developing and maintaining a lot of custom code in the SDKs to support this setup that we have today? Or should we make life easier from like SDK maintenance point of view, and provide similar value in terms of defining a list of defaults? It could be in the documentation, or using examples was one way we could do it, but put it somewhere where there is clear that these defaults exist. Since having it in one place or the other does not make a difference in terms of validation.
Yeah, correct. I don't think this should affect validation like at all, to be honest. And I think definitely making it easier for the SDKs. I think that's why I wanted to do a first like an exhaustive like look at the JSON schema libraries for each language, to better understand their limitations, right? And what sucks is also on top of that is that there isn't like a official JSON library for each schema. I don't think so. I'm assuming like all these are like third-party implementations. So what might be supported in one JSON schema might not be supported in the other. So like we really need to figure out like, if that's a battle we want to go into, is like, oh, if it doesn't support this SDK, then we can't use that, and we have to use some other thing, some examples, for example. Like I really don't like that approach, because it now leaves us hindered to not only the tools, but it's language specific and it's third party specific. And then when you intersect that with all the other languages, like I don't know if it's really a good idea going forward. Like as the spec might get more complex, like being able to like utilize JSON schema for our generation, all the being able to provide or utilize the things that it allows us to do, like more in more complicated fashions is a huge win. But now that we're going to restrict it to the intersection of what languages can support, like that's going to be that's going to only put us in a hard place. And that's more my worry. And that's why I want to first make sure to do the exhaustive deep dive into the SDKs. And then maybe creating a list of all the SDKs that we currently use and seeing what the limitations are. Like maybe we need a table that says it supports this, it supports this, it supports this, doesn't support these, and then kind of figure out like what we need to do, right?
Yeah, I guess this can be part of the work we could do in the other working group. Maybe some task around this. And I mean, of course, there are other options as well. I mean, there's been some discussion about using, I forgot, like async API, I believe, or Open API or other things than JSON schema. So maybe if there is better tooling for other technologies, maybe that's also an option. But yeah.
Yeah, the benefit of using another tool like Open API is that there are official libraries. That's what the benefit there is. So if someone is using some third-party library, we can say, hey, it's supported or it's limited by the official library. That's what we use. Then that's a good argument. We can't just say, you know, oh, it's supported by this third-party library just because we decided to choose it. I mean, we can't say that, but you know, it's kind of what we choose is going to kind of so happen to be luck-based, and the user, you know, their code base might be using a completely different one. They're like, nah, I have to pull in this other dependency. So yeah, I think moving to something that supports a like SDKs for code generation out of the box would be a huge win for us as well. But the problem with that though is that these languages or these language model definitions, right, are can be very, very complicated, right? So yeah, kind of interested to see what we can do there though.
Okay, good discussion of that. We only have 2 minutes left. Jalander, you had a couple of links that you added to the notes. You wanted to say something about those?
Yeah, so maybe we can quickly discuss on those. Actually, I think so the context Ben is aware of this. I think the first one is like I've created a Go pull request for Gerrit translator actually. So if you could open the discussion that we had is like to use struct copy for Gerrit translator. So currently I'm creating a CDEvents the way it is defined in the documentation, like to set individual fields by creating new repository, a created event or any kind of CD event, and set individual fields. But this copy, like struct fields copy, helps in like from source to destination, copying fields from one to another using tools like CopyGen is what like say Ben suggestions on the other PR. So the Gerrit translator. So currently I've made these changes actually to propose a new tag name within CDEvents Go SDK. So this changes will update CDEvents with the field name, and this will be used as a tag name to identify as a copier from source to destination in Gerrit translator. So this is a source type actually and the destination type. So I think one, if you use any libraries, so we can directly copy from one to another instead of manually setting the fields the way we do currently as per it is documented. So I wanted to
And
like know your views on this. Like that's what we'll be doing
yeah,
it
let me
in
give
Gerrit
a little
translator.
bit. Yeah, let me give a little bit of I guess some additional context. So or information. So right now, if we don't have struct tags, we have to do things very manually. We have to copy every field and whatnot. And I suggested to Jolander that basically we can use something called like struct tags to easily, map to one field to another. And what's great about this is if the field name ever changes, the struct tag can remain the same. So breaking changes would be very, very difficult in this regard, or it's more safe for breaking changes. But on top of this, this allows users to also generate their own set of tooling or validation based off of these struct tags too. So it's not just limited to the Garrett translator, but other people they could pull in rather than validating fields one by one. They could actually just pull things in and maybe based off name, have some sort of like name validator, that they would just pull off of like a map, for instance, and do the validation based off of that. So yeah, like I said, this doesn't have just applications to one thing, but it could be useful to other people.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we don't have time to discuss it now online because we are 2 minutes past. But yeah, we'll look into this and put comments on the PR. And otherwise, we can continue next week.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay. Sure.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Other thing quickly, maybe like
Okay.
you can have a comment there in the CDEvents integration with Jira also. I created an RFC so you can do an offline review and provide any comments, Andrea. So I think I
cool.
remember like you were talking about this Jira with some other are interested like from VSMI. I think he's the Steve,
Yeah.
the guy. I think so. I just made some RFC just to have like a brief of how we'll be handling it. So I think, yeah, you can have a look at it. Thanks.
Thanks, Jalander. Bye.
Thank you.